There are stories that make us question everything we know about the people closest to us, stories that shatter the illusion of safety and peace in the places we call home. This is one of those stories. First, let me know where you are watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for more true crime news and stories. Let's dive in. On the morning of December 31st, 2023, a welfare check request was made on the Vosler family, a family that had once been a fixture in their quiet town of Puyallup, Washington. But what should have been a routine visit, a simple check to ensure that all was well, would unravel a mystery so chilling that it would leave the community and the world reeling. Inside the home, a horror had been unfolding in silence for months. For lives bound by blood and tragedy had come to a shocking and grisly end. For people, William Vosler, 68, a mechanic known for his tinkering in the driveway; Eileen Vosler, 66, his devoted wife; Shane Vosler, 33, their son; and Subin Lee, 34, Shane's girlfriend, were about to be discovered, each of them caught in the grip of an unfathomable tragedy. Theories about what had happened began to swirl: murder, suicide, secrets, betrayal, but in the end, no one could truly piece it all together. What happened inside the walls of that home, behind closed doors, has left far more questions than answers. It began like any other day, but the neighbors' growing concern would soon lead law enforcement to the Vosler home. Calls had gone unanswered for months, the family's absence noted, and in their absence, something felt terribly wrong. On December 31st, after a series of failed attempts to check on the family, deputies arrived at the house. What they found inside was far worse than anyone could have imagined. As the deputies entered the house, the first thing that hit them was the unmistakable odor of death, a stench that would forever change the way they viewed that place. They ventured deeper into the home, a home that should have been filled with the sounds of family life, but instead felt like a tomb. And there, in the living room, they found Shane Vosler, 33, lying lifeless on the floor. A gunshot wound to the head, a suicide. But something about the scene was off. Something didn't feel right. Was this a tragic ending to a man's life? Or was Shane the final victim in a much darker tale? The investigation led deputies to the garage freezer, a place where they would discover the bodies of William and Eileen Vosler. The couple, once so vibrant, had been brutally murdered. William with stab wounds to the chest and blunt force trauma, and Eileen with multiple stab wounds to her chest and neck. But the true shock of this discovery was the months-long timeline. These deaths were not recent. They had been dead for months, hidden away in the freezer. The bodies were frozen in time, preserved in their final moments, as though someone had been trying to hide them from the world. The medical examiner's report would only deepen the mystery. William Vosler, 68, had been stabbed in the chest and struck with blunt force, an act of rage and violence. His wife, Eileen, 66, had suffered a similar fate, with stab wounds to the chest and neck, her death equally brutal. But it was the death of Shane Vosler that set the stage for a more twisted revelation. Shane, once a son so deeply loved, had been found with a gunshot wound to the head. His death was ruled a suicide, but there was a nagging suspicion that wouldn't go away. Could this have been murder dressed up as suicide? And then there was Subin Lee, 34, Shane's girlfriend, and the fourth victim in this gruesome tale. She had been shot in the head, and her manner of death was left undetermined. The authorities were left to wonder. Was Sue's death a murder tied to the same tragedy that had claimed the lives of her boyfriend and his parents, or was she simply in the wrong place at the wrong time? The bodies were scattered across the house, and each death left behind a trail of confusion. The state of decomposition, the sudden absence of family members from the neighborhood, the eerily precise timing of death noted on a refrigerator. These elements all hinted at a much more complex and sinister story. As the investigation unfolded, detectives uncovered the chilling notes left on the fridge. Time of death, July 24th, 5:45 a.m., and time of death, July 24th, 3 p.m. These were not just notes. They were clues that suggested the family had been dead for months, far longer than anyone had imagined. The implications of these notes were staggering. If the deaths had occurred in July, then why had no one noticed? Why had the neighbors not been concerned until now? And most chilling of all, why had the bodies been hidden away for so long? Who would commit such a calculated crime and then conceal it for months? For months, no one had seen the Voslers. William, a man who was always working on cars in the driveway, had suddenly vanished. The absence of the family did not go unnoticed. Neighbors became concerned. Calls were made. A series of welfare checks were requested. But each time, deputies found no reason to force their way into the house. On December 23rd, deputies stood outside the home, peering through windows, but there was no sign of forced entry. Without concrete evidence, they left. They would return twice more, each time, nothing to raise alarm bells. But then on December 31st, something changed. William and Eileen's other sons, desperate to know what had happened to their family, took matters into their own hands. They removed an air conditioning unit from the second-floor window and climbed inside. That's when they found Sue Binley's body on the floor. A chilling discovery that would lead to the grim realization that something far darker had transpired in that house. The investigation soon revealed a tragic possibility. Shane was involved. The findings from the medical examiner's report suggested that Shane's death might not have been the simple suicide it appeared to be. Could he have been responsible for the deaths of his parents? Was there a deeper motive, a long-standing issue within the family that led to the horrifying conclusion? Was Shane truly a victim, or had he been the one to end his parents' lives? The theories surrounding his involvement began to grow, and the timeline was becoming more crucial than ever. Shane Vosler, a man on the verge of a breakdown, caught between the love for his family and the growing turmoil inside. But the tension had been building for years. Financial issues, family disputes, and a growing distance from the people he loved all seemed to point to one tragic possibility. Shane had been pushed to the edge. As the investigation unfolded, questions and uncertainties mounted, leaving detectives grappling with the pieces of a puzzle that just didn't seem to fit. The autopsy results confirmed that the timing of the deaths was far stranger than anyone could have imagined. July 24th. The dates etched on the notes in the fridge raised a troubling question. Why were the bodies hidden for months? Why hadn't the authorities been able to intervene earlier? The notes found on the fridge were chilling in their precision, but their true meaning seemed to elude everyone. Could these notes have been left intentionally, a signal to someone, or were they a final act of someone in the family trying to keep track of what had happened? The most pressing question, why was Sue Binley killed? Was she the intended target, or did she just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time? What role did she play in the shocking deaths of William, Eileen, and Shane? And then there was the timeline itself. Why the freezer? Why hide the bodies so carefully, as though someone was trying to preserve the past? The question echoed in the detectives' minds. What was the killer or killers trying to hide? The house that once held the laughter of a family now stood as a chilling testament to a deadly secret. In the stillness of those rooms, every shadow seemed to carry the weight of a life lost. Every object was a reminder of the life that had once been there, now erased. As investigators continued their work, it became clear that not everything in this story made sense. Who had really been behind this crime? Was it Shane, a man clearly struggling with demons of his own, or was there another mysterious force at play? As the investigation progressed, the sheriff's office obtained a search warrant for the Vosler home. The search would yield more disturbing evidence, but it also revealed how much more there was to uncover. Every inch of the home was meticulously combed through. Yet, despite all their efforts, law enforcement couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something critical that would explain what had really happened. The sheriff's office had a mountain of evidence to sift through. Phone records, text messages, family communications, yet nothing could definitively point to the motive. Shane's background, his mental health, and his strained relationship with his parents were becoming central to the case. But what drove him to take such drastic actions? What really happened on that fateful day in July, when the deaths occurred? What had been the trigger? We're looking at a lot of different angles, but nothing is adding up just yet. The situation is complicated. We know Shane had his issues, but this feels like something more. Something we haven't found yet. There are still too many pieces missing. With the investigation still in its early stages, the team pressed forward, piecing together what they could. But for every answer they found, there seemed to be another question waiting just around the corner. At the heart of the investigation was Shane Vosler, the tragic figure whose life had been marked by turbulence and inner conflict. Could this man, a son so deeply loved, have been driven to the unthinkable? Shane had been close to his family, or so it seemed. But beneath the surface, something was terribly wrong. Financial struggles, family tensions, and perhaps even mental health issues were festering. Had Shane, in his despair, made the tragic decision to kill his own parents? Could the guilt of his actions have led him to take his own life? The days leading up to their deaths were marked by tension, but no one could have predicted the explosive violence that would unfold. Was it just the breaking point for Shane? Or was there something darker at play? The tragic possibility that Shane could have been involved in the deaths of his parents, and perhaps even his girlfriend, looms large. Yet, the absence of clear evidence makes it all the more difficult to pin the blame on him. Was he a victim of his own circumstances, or was he the instigator of the tragedy? The unanswered questions seem endless. Why the secrecy? Why the months of silence? Why hide the bodies in such a disturbing manner, in a freezer, frozen in time? What was the motive behind this horrific act? Was Shane the killer? Or was there another, darker secret buried in the heart of the Vosler family? And then there's Sue Bin Lee. Was her death the result of being at the wrong place at the wrong time? Or did she have a deeper connection to the events that took place that night? Her mysterious death remains one of the greatest unanswered questions in this case. Why was she killed? Was she simply another victim? Or did her involvement hold the key to unlocking the true mystery? The search warrants executed on the Vosler home provided more than just a glimpse into a family's shattered past. They uncovered evidence of a crime far darker than anyone could have imagined. With each new discovery, the investigation spiraled deeper into the unknown. What did law enforcement miss during their earlier visits? How could they have not realized the horror that had been festering inside that house for months? The discovery of the Vosler family's bodies sent shockwaves through the quiet town of Puyallup, Washington. A town that had always known the Voslers as neighbors, as a family who, while quiet, were part of the fabric of the community. Now they were gone, and their deaths, tragic, horrific, and mysterious, left behind a deep scar that no one could forget. They were just regular folks, you know? William, Eileen, Shane, none of them seemed dangerous. I can't believe it. I don't understand how something like this could happen right here, where we live. It's just so unreal. It's like a nightmare, you know? The neighborhood was left reeling, grappling with the loss of 4 lives, a family, and 1 innocent bystander caught in the storm. The aftermath was devastating. For William and Eileen's other sons, the pain of losing their parents was compounded by a deep guilt. They had been the ones to force entry into the home, to make the grim discovery. They could never have imagined what they would find. The pain of seeing their parents dead, locked away in a freezer, was a burden they would carry for the rest of their lives. Other son interview. Every day since that day feels like it's been a nightmare. I had to see my parents like that. And then we found Shane. And Sue. I keep thinking, could we have done more? Should we have known something? I don't know, it haunts me every day. For those closest to the Voslers, the pain went beyond just grief. It was a silent scream, a sense of betrayal and unanswered questions. What had happened to them? Why hadn't anyone noticed? And why had it happened? Was the tragedy simply the result of a broken family, or was there something much darker at play? The community, too, struggled with the same questions. What had gone wrong in the Vosler home? How could something so horrific happen in a place that seemed so ordinary? The investigation into the deaths of William, Eileen, Shane, and Sue was a puzzle with missing pieces. Each new discovery led to more confusion. The timeline, as revealed by the notes on the fridge, only added to the chilling nature of the case. The notes, marked with precise times, left investigators wondering. Who wrote them? Were they a cry for help? A final act of someone trying to document the events? Or were they a deliberate attempt to confuse the timeline, to mislead the authorities? What was the significance of those exact times? Were they trying to cover their tracks? Or was there something even darker hidden beneath the surface? The investigators started piecing together the timeline. The deaths of William and Eileen in July, followed by the tragic suicide of Shane in December, and the mysterious death of Sue Bin Lee. But there was still no clear answer. Had Shane been the killer? Or was there someone else responsible? The idea that Shane could have killed his own parents before taking his life was difficult for everyone involved to accept. But the evidence was leaning in that direction. Yet there were still inconsistencies. Sue Bin Lee's death, in particular, was a troubling mystery. Why had she been shot in the head just like Shane? Was she an unfortunate bystander, or had she been drawn into a far more complex plot? With no witnesses, the investigation was left to the clues, the notes, the bodies, the timeline. But each new lead seemed to create more questions than answers. Was Shane truly responsible for everything? Or was there a deeper, darker force at play? The more the detectives delved into the case, the more questions seemed to arise. Why the freezer? Why hide the bodies? Why wait so long to report the deaths? And what about Sue Bin Lee? Why had she been murdered, and how was she connected to everything that had transpired? As the investigation pressed on, it became clear that this was no simple case. Family secrets, strained relationships, financial issues, and hidden tensions all played a role in the tragedy. But there was still something they couldn't figure out, something crucial that they were missing. Could Shane have been driven to violence by these hidden fractures? Was this a story of a man pushed to his breaking point? Or was there something more sinister happening? Something that still hadn't been revealed? The town of Puyallup would never be the same again. The mystery of the Vosler family's deaths remained unsolved, and the community was left to piece together the shattered remains of a once normal family. The deaths of William, Eileen, Shane, and Subin Lee have left behind more questions than answers. The investigation continues, but the truth remains elusive. Was this a story of tragic family breakdown, or something far more sinister? The answers may never come, but the impact of the tragedy will be felt for years to come. In the end, what happened in the Vosler home may never be fully understood. But one thing is certain, the story of the Vosler family is far from over. What secrets still remain? What dark truths are hidden, waiting to be uncovered? Only time will tell. Like and subscribe to Dark Truth Uncovered for more true crime stories. Until the next one, bye for now.